Hello, everybody. Welcome to the
Hi.
fifth episode of the Dungeoneers Podcast, the Discussioneers. We're back on track with some character subclass discussion today. We are going to be jumping in finally to the Sorcerer and Warlock recent articles that were released. Specifically the what is it? Aberrant Mind and
Yeah.
Lurker in the Deep. Did I get those right? So
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and jump in. Hopefully, it will not, because it's only two subclasses and not a 13-page document of class variants. We can actually.
You got fucking lucky, Kurry. That was such a long show.
We
Just because
were
13
sprinting.
fucking pages, and we were explicitly going as fast as possible.
It was
Oh
rough.
man, I
It was
missed
rough.
out.
Like
You
reading a
didn't, though.
tax document.
You didn't, but
Oh,
yes.
that's fun. Yeah.
I mean, there was some good discussion there. It was just a little rushed. I wish we could have had more time to dive into a couple of those things, but
That would have been a 4-hour podcast had we delved
absolutely,
into it.
absolutely correct. So yeah, like I said, we're jumping back into subclass talk today. I'm of course Matt. I'm joined with Bryce and Kurry. We would have had Nate, but he still has the plague, so wish him luck, and
Failed those
hopefully
con saves.
send him
Black
the cure.
Death.
Yeah, send him
Yep.
the cure before we lose him to. I don't know. Anyways, so let's just jump right into things. So the document starts with the Sorcerer, and this is going to be the juicy one because Kurry, you play one of these. You play one of these in my game Fate and Destiny that we run here on the channel. So we're gonna.
Yes. The infamous Dr. Beaver.
That's correct. So we'll
And
have
I
a little
feel
bit
like
of
we-
a player insight on this one.
We've yet to really see a whole lot of it because you've mainly just been twin disintegrating. And that's kind of been your shtick.
That's true. He's a couple of the abilities, but I mean, again, it'll be nice to have someone
There we
who's actively reading and knowing his character, for a couple months now, has his take on this subclass. So let's jump into things, shall we?
Yeah,
So-
so
Go for it.
Aberrant Mind, the flavor of this being you have been invaded by some sort of aberration, be it an aboleth has dominated you and has altered your psychic being, or you were born in some sort of tainted bit of the far realm, or you were attempted to be turned into a mind flayer and it didn't fully work out, only like partially sort of twisting you. So off the bat, like these two subclasses are very Lovecraftian, which is my jam. So
Your number one horror.
it is.
Well,
Getting straight into things,
Go ahead.
for first level, you have invasive thoughts. You have at first level, you gain the ability, you can use a bonus action to create a telepathic link with a creature within 30 feet of you. Until that link ends, you can telepathically speak to the target, and if it understands a language, it can speak back to you. This link lasts for 10 minutes or ends early if you're incapacitated or die, or you make another link as a bonus action.
So
Which
that's
is
pretty
very,
cool.
very fun. So
It's-
I can talk to like all the like summoned griffins in the group that we have in our game. I can just be like, hey, what's up?
right?
Totally screw with what is he, a paladin?
Yeah, that's
Something
Paladin.
like
Yeah,
that.
is that the Paladin?
That's Paladin. That's on the docket coming up. I'm just gonna make that psychic link and be like, hey, you want to listen to me for a little bit?
Tapping into the phone line, just
Yeah.
hey, what are you guys doing?
This is crazy to me, a little bit, I should say, having some a way to bypass any language barriers that which is kind of a puzzle in a lot of D&D games that we see, ours included, where some creatures you come across, don't speak or speak a specific language that isn't common, and it's always a struggle to see who on their character sheets has the language that can communicate with them. So obviously this sorcerer right from the get-go can it doesn't matter who it is, this person's able to talk to them. So
And keep in mind, the way it's stated, this works on beasts and anything that doesn't speak a language. They can't talk back to you, but you can talk to something telepathically.
it's pretty strong for a first level ability. I mean, especially when you look at like spells that other casters will get that kind of tap into not the level of power that this thing grants you, but something similar, like comprehend languages is the first one that comes to mind. That's a second level spell, I believe. So when most classes aren't going to really get some form of ability to do this until they're hitting third level, which is interesting.
Are you entirely sure on
I think it's a
Comprehend
second level
languages
spell.
is a
Is it a first level?
first level ritual.
Never mind. I take it back. So maybe not as strong as I thought. I mean,
That's
obviously,
huge.
like you
It
said,
saves you from needing to take that spell. I still take it, but that's just
Yeah,
because
keep in
I
mind, it
want
doesn't let you
I
read
want to be able to have
things.
a conversation
True.
rather than just one-way conversation.
That's
So
true.
I normally take that anyway.
It's definitely
It's
interesting.
also
It's obviously it's one of those things that's going to be mostly roleplay focused. It doesn't have a lot of combat benefits, so I don't have a problem with it. I just thought it was interesting, but then since I've been corrected and realized that comprehend languages is a first level spell, not a second level spell, then I'll just shut up because apparently my argument is null and void. I appreciate
keep
that.
in mind though, you are dealing with there are a few spells that require a creature to understand you. That's more of a bard thing, but a sorcerer can tap into some of that.
Yeah.
And two, this is a bonus action rather than like having to cast it as a ritual or like a full action as comprehend
True.
languages. So it's pretty
No spell
good.
slots, it's pretty good. But again,
But there's a built-in balance, I feel like, depending on how your DM goes deep into the flavor of this, because there's a little sidebar that talks about how disturbing your magic is, that there's some sort of quirk to how your magic works that is just uneasy to those around you. And this
Well-
ability is called Invasive Thoughts. I feel like you could very much like read that this is something that is disquieting to anyone that you use it on.
Yeah, I think like whispering in somebody's head, like you just look at them and you're forcing your thoughts into them. So I think this could be used in a creative combat way to freak out your opponents.
sure. I mean,
Or even if you use it on someone that, like, if you run into a goblin that doesn't understand you, you don't understand them, and then you start using this on them, they might freak the fuck out and attack you or something because you're doing something weird to them.
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely interesting.
Work both ways.
That's definitely interesting.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going.
First level as well, we have Sonic Spells, which is interesting. This is the second of two subclasses now for Sorcerer that gain extra spells at early level, like from a list, right? Not like a couple get the Shadow gets Darkness. The Divine Sorcerer, though, as well gets, depending on your affinity, a single spell. For this, you are getting multiple spells at various levels, which is pretty decent because sorcerers are pretty limited on the spells they know. At max level, or it maxes out at 17th level where they only know 15 spells.
Mm-hmm.
So going through here, you at first level you learn Arms of Hadar and Dissonant Whispers, both very good damage spells. At third level, you get Calm Emotions and Detect Thoughts, both useful for various situations. Fifth level, you get Hunger of Hadar and Sending. Sending being a pretty fantastic spell for keeping in contact with NPCs or each other. 17th level, you get Compulsion and Evard's Black Tentacles. You can kind of tell they're going for a theme.
Yep.
And 9th level, you get Modify Memory, which has some horrifying implications for this subclass. And Rary's Telepathic Bond, which we've seen Dr. Beaver use.
Yep. I almost did use Modify Memory this last episode too.
Oh shit!
But
Really?
yep, I prepared it. I didn't have the spell slot, so I was just about to just start playing around with my sorcery points for that for the very first time.
Huh.
But I didn't end up needing it because we ended up changing who we were going to go kill. So
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so
all
it
that
sort of
time
changed.
talking and then
I now that you say that, I think I know what your plan might have been, which would have been interesting if had it worked. But
Yeah, yeah.
one thing
Yeah,
I want to,
but it didn't go that direction. So
yep. One thing I want to point out with this that I found interesting. Again, it's not necessarily broken. It isn't. I don't hate it, but it's very rare that you not only see, like you said, free spells for a sorcerer to get, but a couple of these spells, notably the Arms of Hadar and Hunger of Hadar, are Warlock only spells typically. They only exist in the Warlock spell list. Hadar being a creature of the Far Realm. I don't know his full lore, but I know that he is a terrible, terrible beast, and that the spell is channeling his power in a way. But yeah, so a non-warlock essentially has access to these spells when you take the subclass.
Yep. So now if you want to play Warlock, just play a Aberrant Mind Sorcerer.
No,
Yeah.
don't. That's
it's
not
way
true.
better.
That's not
Yes.
true. But we mentioned it briefly in a previous episode. We are working on some subclasses of our own that are going to be all released, and we're working on one per class in the player's handbook. It was this class that really sparked the fire for me to get started on the document, and pulling everybody in to work on it. And you're going to see there's a lot of similarities to this, and a little bit of a spoiler alert. When we do our Sorcerer, that might also have a similar ability to tap into those spells. A very similar design that I decided I really like. I want to see those spells more. It sucks that only the Warlocks get it, because the Warlocks are limited on spell slots, so they don't really get to cast them a whole lot. So it's nice to see those on a caster who has a lot of spell slots.
So on top of all this, on top of these spells that you get, which if I recall, sorcerers don't have to choose what spells they have. They just have all of them known all the time.
That is correct.
So this is just an additional, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 spells on top of your maximum of 15. Like, you're all nearing twice of what your known spells would be. Pretty good. You also get Warped Being. Your Aberrant origin protects you from harm, and I love the flavor they add for this, for the various options. Your body might have a coating of viscous slime, tough hide, or scales, or an invisible psionic barrier. Whatever the form of protection takes, your AC equals 13 plus your dexterity modifier while you aren't wearing armor.
Not unheard of as far as the mechanical benefit. We see the same thing in Draconic Resilience for the Draconic Bloodline Sorcerer, and I'm thinking
it does concern me, though, is that you look at the Draconic Sorcerer, and they get that and a damage resistance, and that's all they get for first level.
That's true. The power difference is a bit crazy, because what I think honestly they should have done, they should have and this is my hope, because we've, for good reason, of all highly hypothesized that next year at some point we'll probably get some announcement that includes a bunch of these classes, the subclass variant rules we talked about last week. But what I'm kind of hoping, honestly, the thing that they should do for class variants for the Sorcerer really is, I think all Sorcerers should just get a list of free spells. I mean, they're already kind of limited to, like you said, 15 normally without taking a specific subclass. So honestly, like the Draconic Bloodline, I think just needs to get revisited and get some free spells to be brought. Like, I don't think, my point is the Aberrant Mind, yes, as of now, for the first level abilities, is better than the Draconic Bloodline. There's no question. But I think that rather than tuning down the Aberrant Mind, I think it's fine. I think you just need to tune up the Draconic Resilience, or the Draconic Bloodline, excuse me. I just think some of those, I think some of the subclasses need a little bit more love to, give those sorcerers some more spell options.
No, for sure. Definitely, I think Sorcerer could do with it a little bit of buff. I will say, to get it to at least where it is now without changing everything else, I don't know why they gave Aberrant Mind the AC. Like, I get it for the Draconic. They're kind of supposed to be like a buffer. I guess the one other thing that the Draconic does get is the extra 1 HP per level up, which, that's fine. It's minor.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah. Why not just get rid of the AC? Like, the Aberrant Mind seems to me like a very heavy, just like spellcaster version, not supposed to be like that beefy. So why not just lean into the fact that you have all these other abilities? It just seems
and is casting Mage Armor, which is a sorcerer spell that hard,
doesn't
it's first level spell slot that you don't normally need that much.
Right.
So.
Right. I mean, Mage Armor does the same thing, right? It's AC 13 plus your dex with Mage Armor on, no concentration. So essentially you're right. That's can be any sorcerer can effectively negate that just by taking a first level spell. But
so I feel like I don't see why they have that, but you're definitely right. You could do with just buffing all the other sorcerers a bit.
Yeah. I hear you though. I mean, it does seem a bit weird that, I mean, aberrations in my mind, sure, they're like, they're from the far realm, they're from, existences beyond what we can comprehend, and I just never saw them as something a little bit more tankier, just more like spooky.
For sure. And getting into the high level stuff here in a second, like, the rest of the subclass does lean more into being a really good spellcaster rather than having certain resistances and being stronger, which is kind of unique only to the Draconic bloodline, where they get elemental affinities and things. But because moving into 6th level, you then get Psionic Sorcery. You can cast any of the spells gained from your spells feature list, so all the ones we went through on that chart, and you can cast, or when you cast any of them, you can cast expending a spell slot as normal, or expending a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level. If you cast it using sorcery points, it requires no components. It is entirely just a mental thought.
So no need for meta magic, subtle spell. No need for. Well, I guess you're using your. That makes sense because you're using your sorcery points anyway instead of a spell slot.
Basically, a buffed subtle spell, but you don't need material components, so you don't need anything that's expensive. Which I don't know if any of those spells actually have that. To be fair,
now you said it's half the spell's level. Is that correct?
It's equal to the spell's level.
Equal. So.
Oh, okay.
Like if I was going to recycle for a 5th level spell slot to cast, modify memory, it would cost me normally 9 or 7, something like that, sorcery points, and I could just do it for 5 now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I looked up just now. I don't know why it took me till just now to look it up, but yeah, that's a very good point. So you can spend 5 sorcery points to drop your 5th level modify memory. I guess you use your example, or you can use the default every sorcerer gets it spell slot conversion, where you take 7 sorcery points to get your 5th level spell slot back. So that might be a little bit of a balance issue, in my opinion. I do like the ability to cast these limited list of spells, with no components and whatnot, and being able to take your sorcery points right away to do it. But I mean, it seems like you can already technically do it anyway.
You're also limited to these very specific spells, so I don't think it's that crazy. A lot of them are just combat based. Like there's a few that aren't like sending and stuff, but I don't think it's anything too crazy. But again, it's like you're just a really good spellcaster, so it makes me wonder even further on you're not meant to be up in the fray of things.
I don't know. It just feels like it's stepping on its toes, right? Like I feel like they could have come up with a different 6th level ability that doesn't you can already convert spell slots. Is it with the bonus action, Kurry? You're playing one, is it?
It's going to be like the normal, whatever the spell. If it's an action to cast, it's still going to take an action.
Right.
You're just using your sorcery points instead.
But normally it's a bonus action to convert your sorcery points to spell slots.
Right. Normally it's it's a bonus action.
So I mean, you can be doing that on the fly anyway. It just feels like it's stepping on each other on its own toes. Like I said, it's like you can already convert the spell slots and cast the spell anyway. But yeah, you can spend less spell slots or less sorcery points for these very limited spells. But it just seems like, I don't know.
You're just getting it cheaper. That's it.
You're getting a little bit cheaper, but you compare it to any other sorcerer who gets an actual
cheaper,
legitimate
and
ability.
You can modify it, because note that meta magic, you can't have more than one meta magic active on a spell that you cast. This doesn't count as a meta magic. I
guess
so you can use that bonus. Isn't it a bonus action for activating some of those, or is it just when you cast the spell?
Some of them,
it's just when you cast it.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know.
It just
You're
seems
not wrong.
It's
a little underwhelming, and it's not that different, but I think it's still useful.
Sure.
What other classes get at 6th level?
That's a good question. A lot of them aren't anything crazy, which is
but they're just cool. They're just different things you get. Where this is just you can get a cheaper version of something you can already do. Or a divine soul sorcerer gets what is it?
Empowered healing. Whenever they heal themselves or now within 5 feet, they can spend a sorcery point to reroll any of the dice.
Okay. Dragonborn or the draconic bloodline is.
They get one of the best ones when they deal damage of an elemental type that equal to that is of their bloodline. So if you're like a red dragonborn or a red draconic bloodline fire, you add your charisma modifier to those.
That's pretty good.
You can also spend a sorcery point to gain resistance to that for an hour.
Shadow sorcerer, you just get a shadow dog. Dope. Storm sorcerer.
Spell that already works for that.
Minor controlling magic, and also being able to when you do lightning and thunder damage, you can kind of damage other creatures as well.
It's definitely none of these are huge. Despite the fact it doesn't seem that crazy, because there's another 6th level ability that they get. It's probably one of the most powerful 6 levels for a sorcerer, and yet at the same time, it's nothing like flashy or unique. It's just good. It's
It's
just
just
like by the math good.
I just don't
Yeah.
like it. I mean, you might be right as far as the math goes, sure. I mean, yes, but I just like I said, it just when I take a subclass, I want just new shit, not I can do something a little bit better. I mean, I guess
No, yeah, for sure.
Maybe they were more front loaded and then they're evening, flattening it out in the midterm.
that could be it too, because the first level stuff, there's a lot you get, but I don't know. It's just
Yeah, sure. Wouldn't it be great if you went just dipped in one level of this sorcerer, huh?
fuck you. You don't ever
BB?
say that word around me anymore. That word's banned. No more dipping. Anyways, let's
on
move
top
on
of
before
that, 6th level, you get psychic defenses. You gain resistance to psychic damage and have advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. That's on top of what you already get, pretty good at concerning still though, like certain races like elves and stuff already have advantage versus like charms and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Maybe not
still
frightened, but yeah.
pretty good.
I mean, not really though,
Psychic
because
damage you're never really gonna take, but
yeah, there's not a lot of just like psychic damage is not heavily resisted to monsters. There's not a lot of monsters that deal psychic damage. So cool, you have it in the rare instance you need it, but easily the majority of the monsters you'll fight in a D&D adventure, unless it's obviously catered to it specifically, that's not going to really come into play. And then
for sure. And if you're an elf like Aberrant Mind, then you already have advantage against charms, so
I have to go out of my way to put monsters that deal psychic damage so I can scare the Bear Barbarian in Fate and Destiny. I have to
make
do
him feel
research.
mortal.
What does psychic damage? What can I throw into an encounter that can scare Tan because everything else he's resistant to? When he rages, but it's
knock him back down. Remind him that he can be hurt.
It's okay.
I'm not a fan just because you already have another sub. As much as I think the other thing's useful, combining these two, you're just not getting anything cool.
It's just not cool.
It's useful, but there's nothing neat here.
Yeah, that was my point. It's useful. It's just not cool. Yeah, it's just not cool.
14th level, you get Revelation in Flesh, which I just want to stop and say, what a fucking fantastic name for an ability.
Props.
Is just beautiful.
Yep.
All I can think is Wayne June from Darkest Dungeon voiceover fame. Just that's the voice that comes to mind when I read this.
Yep.
Being at 14th level, you can unleash your aberrant truth hidden within your flesh. As a bonus action, you spend 1 or more sorcery points to magically transform your body for 1 minute. For each sorcery point you spend, you can gain one of the following benefits. You gain a swimming speed equal to your walking speed and the ability to breathe water as gills grow from your neck or fan out from behind your ears. Your fangs become webbed, etc., etc. You gain a flying speed equal to your walking speed and can hover as you fly. Your skin glistening with mucus. This is being important because if you have hover, you can't be knocked out of the air.
Yep.
If you fall prone, you stay up there.
Yep.
Right.
Your body, along with any equipment you're wearing, becomes slimy and pliable. You can move through any space as narrow as 1 inch without squeezing and can spend 5 feet of movement to escape from non-magical restraints or being grappled.
Wow.
Gross. I love it.
That's the big thing yesterday was, am I going to fly out or do I want to just slither out of those tentacles that were grappled me yesterday?
This is the ability you use, right?
Yeah, this is totally the ability I used. I decided to just Misty Step and fly because, flying's going to stop me from getting in that situation again. Right. So that's what I went with. But I was very tempted to just squirm out. And I thought that was going to be cool. But, yeah, flying's just better. I can't wait till we come up to a door puzzle and I'm just like, hang on, guys.
You squeeze underneath the crack in the door. That is gross, creepy, and I love it.
Yeah.
On top of that, you have your eyes turn black or become writhing sensory tendrils. Ugh. You are aware of the location of any hidden or invisible creature within 60 feet of you. Now, this is a fucking ability.
Yep.
This is an ability you get.
That's super strong.
And honestly, why? And I say this because we recently made, as kind of a spoiler for something upcoming for our own thing, one of the subclasses has something close to this where you make a transformation and choose abilities. Right? Why didn't they just move the armor class into this?
Yeah, that would make more sense to me, I think.
Because, being able to stack that, it's nothing by itself, nothing amazing at 14th level, but, sure, being a 14th level is like, oh, I'll spend an extra sorcery point and I just have mage armor for, this duration. It's not the full 8 hours or whatever, but
Yeah, you get it half the price of a first spell slot, basically.
Yeah.
I guess for that
Yeah.
cost, you probably wouldn't really want that, would you?
Yeah, for me though, like
Nah.
I like it and I like how there's options here. I don't know if I like the fact that you can spend more so basically you can spend 1 sorcery point and take one of these 4 options, or you can spend up to 4 and effectively get all 4 of them. Granted,
Yep.
some of them are less useful, like, if you're flying, there's probably no reason to be a slimy slime boy, right?
You probably
Or-
don't need
or
to
a swimmy
swim.
swim boy. But that means that
True.
you can now be able to stack any of the first 3 with the 4th one, which is being able to see anything hidden or invisible. For just 2 sorcery points, you can get the effect of like a fly spell, better than a fly spell because it's hover, and also a see invisibility spell, which normally
Which is even better because you detect hidden creatures. So even guys that aren't like
right.
stealth, just guys that are stealthed naturally are
Yep.
also revealed to you.
Yeah, so you'd be able to do that. So basically, normally, if any other person wants to do this, they just can't because flying is a concentration spell, see invisibility is a concentration spell. So that concerns me, right? I think that, in my opinion, for this ability, I like it as is. I just think it should just be 1 sorcery point to get one of the 4, and you don't get the other one.
I think that wouldn't be too crazy, especially considering. I mean, a lot of the 14th level stuff here for sorcerers are pretty good. Anyways, 2 of them just get wings. Both Draconic and Divine get wings. Shadow Magic gets a teleport. So there's a lot of mobility stuff here that's not too crazy, and none of it's like concentration or anything. But being able to get all of these is a little crazy.
Yeah, like I said, I love the ability as is. I just think they should scale it down to the fact that you should just be only be able to have 1 active at any time. That last thing though, being able to see hidden and invisible, that's pretty strong. But at the same time, you're 14th level. More than likely, if you wanted to, you could just have a see invisibility spell anyway. So again,
Yeah.
as is, I love them. I just don't think they should stack necessarily, but that's my opinion.
It's saving you a lot of spells that you have to pick through.
It's huge though.
That's really, really nice for a sorcerer.
Yeah.
I'm not a wizard and can have infinite spells as long as I can write it down. It's just that's kind of where they're doing all this stuff because the wizard is still more powerful than a sorcerer. It's just the facts. That's why they're doing it. I feel they're upping the power and usefulness and giving them more access to spells and abilities.
Makes sense.
Yep. 18th level, you get Warp Reality. At 18th level, you become the focal point of a reality warping anomaly.
Whoops.
Whoopsie. As an action, you can magically radiate a transparent 20-foot radius aura for 1 minute. You might take the form of a sphere of rippling psychic energy, a fluctuating amoebic gel, an extrusion of ephemeral parasites, or some other manifestation.
Gross.
They're really going heavy into the body horror for this subclass.
Yep.
Other creatures treat the aura as difficult terrain, and when they start their turn, they take 2d10 psychic damage. No saving throw. When you activate this feature, you choose any number of creatures you can see to be unaffected by the aura. As a bonus action, you can end the aura early. If you do so, you and any number of creatures you choose within the aura are teleported to a location you can see within 1 mile. Each creature must appear within 20 feet of you and in an unoccupied space. An unwilling creature that succeeds on a charisma saving throw against your spell save DC is not teleported. Once you use this feature, you cannot use it again until a long rest. I like this. I don't know how amazing it is for an 18th level ability, but I like it.
It's definitely flavor-wise, it's juicy, and I love that part. But
yeah, it's really cool. I like it. I can't wait to do it.
He just cease to become a person and become just this weird aberrant tear in the fabric of reality. And there's still twin spelling disintegrate outside of it.
Pew, pew, pew.
I mean, I don't know how you're getting, I guess, a free 2d10 psychic damage just around you, meaning you're gonna have to be within 20 feet of stuff. You're spending your full action to do this, but you could, I guess, say you could quicken spell and be able to do something else as a bonus action. So not for a sorcerer, nothing too crazy. the teleport is interesting. One is a way to get out, but also a chance to teleport with an unwilling creature.
Yep.
It's definitely neat.
It's really cool. It is, however, within 1 mile that you can see. So
So like if you're indoors, that sucks,
yeah. Better be near a window because
I mean, there are ways to get around that though. If you can sorcerers take clairvoyance, because that definitely, I think that's the spell I'm thinking of. Because there's the spell where you summon an eye, right, and it looks in a spot. You can create an invisible sensor. That is a sorcerer spell, so you could spend 10 minutes. Now, admittedly, that's a 10-minute concentration spell, but if you were to get it off right, like you do have ways of seeing in other locations.
Right. It requires more noodling than a normal ability would need.
Yeah, but I mean, it's neat. I mean, compared to some of the other stuff, though,
a lot of the other subclasses, admittedly, they just have better options, in my opinion. We don't really need to go over them, but a lot of them have various other equivalent of transformations that do some cooler stuff. But
yeah, like another transformation, because some of these are just good, like divine, where you just, if you're below half health, you regain half of your health. It's just fucking nice.
Yep.
But like shadow magic, you get umbral form, where you admittedly have to spend 6 sorcery points as a bonus action, but you transform much like this, and you gain resistance to all damage except for force and radiant. You can move through creatures and objects if they were difficult terrain, and take force damage if you're stuck inside something. There's stuff that's, I would say, more reliably useful.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm okay with it, honestly, because I think, on to Kurry's previous point, I think this is one of those, the subclass seems pretty front-loaded. It gets a lot of really cool shit very early, so I think it having an 18th level ability that's not as good as the other options out there, I think I'm okay with.
Yeah, I'd like to see it be a bit more even, especially to challenge, players that want to go for the dip, but
I said
I don't hate it.
Word. I told you.
All right. Final thoughts, opinions, flavor balancing.
It's a really fun class to play.
It definitely seems like it. Just reading it,
you get with a lot of role players. This is very role play heavy kind of class. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
What made you choose this when you were rolling your character?
I chose this one specifically because it's Bryce's number one fear. Just basically rolled up. Freaking.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I
want him to play Subnautica. I'm gonna play freaky fish guys. That's gonna be my
I refused
thing.
to play it, so he brought the Subnautica to me.
Subnautica
yes, exactly.
In Bryce's defense, Subnautica's a fucking terrifying game. Yeah. I still haven't beat it. I get to a point where I'm like, nope, and then I try to play it in VR, double nope. So, but that's not what the podcast is about.
I mean, like I've said, like I'm biased because I'm a sucker for everything Lovecraftian, and this is like bread and butter. Just even the flavor text and the names of these abilities just butter me up the right way. So I love it. I don't know. I still think it's definitely one of the stronger sorcerers, and it just would be fun to play.
Absolutely.
And yet at the same time, there's some weird things that like other sorcerers get more interesting abilities.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things that, tweaks in certain categories will fix. It's playtest content, as we all know. I'm pretty much, I agree with you guys for the most part. I mean, it looks a lot of fun. I love it. I love it thematically. It does make it a little difficult because since this is the subclass that finally fueled my desire to design all the subclasses we're doing, and they all have a similar theme-ish, it does make it annoying that because it is that source of inspiration, I want to make something, but I don't want it to be too close to this subclass because this is probably going to be one of those things that becomes an official release. So it's very cool and also very frustrating, but that's all I'll say.
And I will say, like, once this thing gets fully published, like, I can almost guarantee, I feel like I'm going to end up playing one of these at some point.
Just read it first.
Yeah,
that's
well,
right.
Ain't that the fucking story of the dungeon? Right? Moving on, we have We have Warlock, I guess.
Do you want me to take over because you apparently have no love
it's
for the
fine.
Warlock?
I
which
can
is
get through
fine.
this. It's okay.
Fine. There's nothing wrong.
So we have the Lurker in the Deep, which, again, this is maybe the one and only subclass for Warlock I will actually enjoy because flavor-wise, it's beautiful. You've made a pact with an entity that lurks somewhere in the deep ocean or even on the elemental plane of water, such as a mighty kraken, an ancient primordial, or a monstrous being from the creation's earliest days. They're trying really hard not to say Cthulhu.
Yes.
Because they don't want to have to pay any money to other people for rights of things, so they are getting as far away from saying Deep One or Old Gods as possible. But this is obviously what it is.
Well, I don't think Cthulhu is the equivalent of a kraken or a ancient primordial, Bryce.
I mean, it's a monstrosity being from the creation's earlier days. I mean, you can say the great old ones are pretty close to, like, that's kind of D&D has its own, like, elder gods sort of going on, such as one that we were fucking dealing with in Fate and Destiny.
And you can't really say that Lovecraft and like Deep Ones, all that old stuff isn't, the copyright has got to have passed on that by now.
Maybe I don't
know. Honestly,
because some things are weird about talking about it.
This doesn't scream Cthulhu to me. Like, if anything, there's a pre-existing subclass for the Warlock. What is it? The Great Old One. That's pretty much on the nose. For a Cthulhu or it's Great Old One. It's in the name. But I think this is interesting.
You're not. There's some things here though. Mainly just like the tendril stuff. Which, getting into it, you have the expanded spell list, which is pretty is on par with everything else that Warlocks get because they need everything they can get. First level, you get Create or Destroy Water and Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave's neat. Create or Destroy Water. We've used it once in all of like 77 episodes of Fate and Destiny. So who gives a shit?
Use one of my 2 spell slots to create Destroy Water. Bull.
Oh my god. Well, that's a fair point. Like a cleric or wizard, sure. A fucking warlock casting Create or Destroy Water.
Well, to be fair, you're going to use this almost always out of combat. When you on the very rare occasion you do.
Guess.
And you're going to get your spell slot back before you get into a fight.
Unless your DM's a dick and it's like, oh, you cast Create or Destroy Water, here's an ambush. You have one spell.
Well, that's your DM's fault, not me.
Also, the thing I love is, can sorcerers choose to cast at lower levels?
What?
Huh?
Can a can a warlock choose to cast at lower levels?
I was so confused.
Sorry, I'm trying to get as far away from warlock as possible.
I don't think so. They just count as the highest
level.
level. But why would you ever want to?
Right.
Because for Create or Destroy Water, the higher levels, it makes more water.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Can't choose.
I'm a little thirsty.
I will fill this bucket. Tidal wave.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that would be kind of funny. Just after you level up, like, oh, hey, can you do that water thing again? Sure.
The whole town.
Yeah. Anyways, second level, you get Gust of Wind and Silence.
Yay!
Silence is huge, though, because you can shut down enemy spellcasters. Granted, spellcasters don't come up a whole lot in games traditionally, at least, less so than other fights, but silence is a not to be an underestimated spell. Gust of Wind, meh.
Gust of Wind, yeah, you can get rid of those, cloud kills or whatever, I guess. I mean, sure. Third level, you get Lightning Bolt and Sleet Storm. Yeah. Finally, some good spells.
Good. Yep, there we go.
Now we're getting
Lightning Bolt's just solid. Fourth level, you get Control Water and Evard's Black Tentacles. Both are pretty good, especially if you end up, perhaps, I don't know, or some sort of Furbolg Druid on a ship being chased by a few vessels and you just insta-kill one of them. That was one of my favorite times in Cult of Domar.
No comment.
Fifth level, you get Commune with Nature and Cone of Cold. Commune with Nature, we've seen it has its uses. Cone of Cold, a decent, just AoE damaging spell.
Mm-hmm.
All in all, I'm not a huge fan of their expanded spell list, but there's some good ones on there.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the spell list goes, almost every single Warlock spells list has just a better selection. Like, I get that their goal when anytime they make an expanded spell list for any class is to keep them, as close thematically to the class's design and theme that they can. So you'll see, like obviously that's why Create or Destroy Water or Gust of Wind are there, is because they're trying to, bring it to like that whole ocean or elemental plane kind of thing, like basically like sailing. But I think there's got to be some better options out there you can use, because like these spells, like you said, like they're just, they're super duper situational, so those spells almost never come into play.
And if you're a warlock, the last thing you want to use your rare spell slots on are situational or utility, right? That's what you have other spellcasters for.
I can't. That argument is null in most cases, because if you're using some of these spells that are out of combat, you're gonna almost always have that spell slot back before you're ready to fight.
In our games, maybe, but
every single time I casted a spell, every warlock I've ever played, that was it, because we weren't short resting until we had a fight.
That's because you have Bryce as your dungeon master. If you had
excuse you, that was the fucking party being like, no, we have to press on.
I would have had you back had I been your dungeon master. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Well, I'm just saying, in my experiences, that's not true.
So. I'm saying it's Bryce's fault. It's all Bryce's fault.
I disagree, but think base game. A short rest is an hour. A lot can So that's not necessarily guaranteed that you'll get it back.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My whole decision is based on, we talked about it in a previous episode of the podcast, where a couple of minor tweaks and allowing the warlock to get their spell slots back before every fight, kind of how it's intended, is kind of needed, because in play by the default rules it doesn't happen. So to your guys's, jokes aside, to your guys's point, a lot of the times you don't get those short rests because players don't do them as much as that I think the designers wanted them to. So yeah, you would be using your spell slot to create a puddle on the ground, and then you're fucked for the day. Yep. So
can I pose a question? Why don't they give them Cold Lightning? That would be a amazing spell for a warlock to have, because then they can continue casting.
I think isn't there another warlock that already gets that?
Is there?
I don't know, but even if there is, I know that there's other warlocks that they have same spells on their list. That's not unheard of. But actually, now I'm looking at it, I don't think Call Lightning is there.
No, it's not.
No, I just, that would be nice to give warlocks a spell that like lasts more than instantaneous. That just like they can keep. And obviously, there are some things like that do, but to go in with the storm and like lightning theme they're going for, like I would prefer having that rather than Sleet Storm or even Lightning Bolt.
But let's definitely need some love, because, like I said, you go to any other warlock spell list, and those are just, for the most part, you get a list of what ends up being a total of 10 spells, and almost all of them are useful in some shape or form, right? But this one, you see 2 spells that are super situational that won't get used hardly, and yes, there's some good damaging spells in there, and then Control Water again as another situational kind of thing. Like, it just seems like there's less use unless you're specifically playing. Like if you were doing a Ghost of Saltmarsh fucking adventure, or some equivalent of like a Seafaring adventure, then you're gonna get a lot of use out of these, I think.
Oh yeah.
But other than that, they're just you're falling into a similar trap with the default Ranger is you have an ability, something that's granted by your class, that is too limited in the scope of things, and therefore it doesn't mesh well with any campaign, only a specific campaign.
Exactly. Anyways, moving on. We are somehow already reaching an hour, despite the fact we had 2 fucking subclasses to go through, and we're taking an hour.
The intro went a while. We're like 45 minutes.
Okay. All right. Sure. You get a first level Grasper of the Deep. At first level, you gain the ability to magically summon a spectral tentacle that strikes your foes. As a bonus action, you create a 10-foot long tentacle at a point you can see within 60 feet of you. Tentacle lasts for 1 minute until you use this feature to create another tentacle. When you create the tentacle, you can make a melee spell attack against a creature within 10 feet of you. On a hit, they take 1d8 cold or lightning damage, your choice when they take the damage, and its speed is reduced by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. When you reach level 10, the damage increases to 2d8. As a bonus action on your turn, you can move the tentacle up to 30 feet and repeat the attack. You can summon the tentacle a number of times you go to Charisma modifier, and regain these on a long rest. So you basically have a bunch of spiritual weapons available.
Yeah,
that are faster.
Yep. You affect that. Yeah, that's exactly. That was the point I was going to make. You beat me to it. You get a spiritual weapon, but no spell slot. You get it a number of times.
Slightly less damage.
Slightly
a worse damage type.
Well, yeah. And then
I just like to think it's another attack from your Eldritch Blast. It's just another tentacle that comes out of you.
This is why this is one of my favorite subclasses so far for Warlock. Is this a lot of this gives you additional stuff to do while you're using your action. It gives you other damage capabilities, so you can kind of up the things you can do. So it's not, oh, I have 2 spells and Eldritch Blast. I now have this alternative damage dealer as well, so I can focus on other things, which is
cool.
Nice.
No
You
concentration.
also get Scion, which is very nice. Special weapon as well isn't concentration though.
No, but I'm just saying, like, it's it's super useful because you're gonna have it a number of times equal to your charisma modifier. So that is usually a warlock's second choice or first, depending on your design. But I mean, the point is you're gonna be able to effectively use this every combat in a day, almost.
Most likely. Sign of the Deep, at first level, you get your patron accepts you into its inner court of servitors. You can telepathically communicate with any aberration, beast, elemental, or monstrosity that has an innate swimming speed while it is within 120 feet of you. The creature can understand you and can respond telepathically. Neat. Situational, but neat.
Situational, but neat. I think combining it with your, the Grasp of the Deep, the one you just mentioned, like, that's just a solid ability. So just having a little bit of flavor here is no big deal. But sure, I guess it makes sense to me.
Yep. Then at 6th level, you get Fathomless Soul. You can breathe both air and water. You gain a swimming speed equal to your walking speed and have resistance to cold damage. By itself, that's kind of underwhelming. But you also get Guardian Grasp. At 6th level, the tentacle you create with Grasp of the Deep can defend you and others. When you or a creature you can see takes damage within 10 feet of a tentacle, you can use your reaction to choose one of the creatures and reduce the damage to the chosen creature by half. After doing so, the tentacle vanishes.
Ooh, that last part is pretty huge, though.
Yeah.
That makes it so you really
pretty
can't
fun.
use as much.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a bonus action to summon again, so it's not too
Pretty
big of a
good.
deal.
Right, but
it's useful.
You still
Keep in mind,
are limited to how many you can summon it based on your charisma mod, like we said earlier. So like, it's useful to use, but it's like once it's gone, it's like, well, shit, I only have so many of these left.
yeah, but there can be some big. What if you get disintegrated and you can be like half damage?
True.
Yeah. And plus, you're a warlock. You're used to only being able to do things like a couple times.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, I think with those two together, it's a pretty solid 6th level.
Yeah,
considering they're like they are the only warlock that gets 2 things at 6th level.
That's true. Again, that first thing though, with the exception of the cold resistance, which is just that you just always have that, which is always and you can never say no to resistances. But the other thing is it's another situational type of thing, but it's okay because it's being combined with the other ability as well as the resistances. But yeah, it is going to kind of suck if again you're in a campaign that never has.
You're in a desert, haha.
Yeah, but.
No, for sure. But like you were right, like in a certain
through hell with your cold resistance.
Yeah. Yep.
So, well, I mean, there is a layer of hell. I think there's actually 2 layers of hell that are ice cold. Believe it or not.
It's true. Yeah.
At 10th level, you get.
Never mind. Go on.
You get Devouring Maw. A lovely name. Starting 10th level, you can magically draw forth a manifestation of your patron's insatiable hunger. As an action, choose a point you can see within 60 feet of you. For 1 minute, a translucent maw manifests in a 10-foot radius centered around this point. Each creature in that area, when the maw appears, must succeed on a strength saving throw, a fairly uncommon saving throw, against the spell save DC or be restrained. Any creature that starts its turn in the maw's area takes 3d6 cold or lightning damage, your choice when it takes the damage. As an action, a restrained creature can repeat the saving throw, ending the restraint on success. At the start of your turn, if a creature is in the maw's area, you gain temporary hit points equal to your warlock level. Once you use this, you can use it. You cannot use it again until you finish a short or long rest.
There's a lot to this ability.
I think it's more worded a bit lengthy than it needs to. It's pretty. I think it's neat. You're getting this flavor now where you're basically like summoning in parts of your patron to like. Yeah, you're bringing in like the parts of the Kraken to like various parts of the battlefield. I love the visual of that.
It's neat. It's useful. So cool.
10-foot radius is actually that's pretty sizable, I suppose. That's 20-foot diameter. So I mean,
if you're looking at squares, you're looking at it's a 4x4 square.
It's not bad.
Or however the sphere measures. But yeah, it's not bad, and you got to keep in mind it's restrained and not grappled. So grappled just reduces your movement to 0. Restrained gives that juicy ability to make the target have disadvantage on attack rolls, as well as have attacks against it have advantage. So,
which is nice. The only issue is you can't choose creatures that aren't affected, so you have to use this where your allies aren't, and your allies can't rush in really to smack them with restrained. But it's something that doesn't need concentration. Strength saving throws aren't terribly common, so unless you're fighting like something really big and beefy, they're probably not going to be too great at it.
Mhm.
And you can just have this active while you're doing spell casting. So turn 1, you could action Maw, bonus action summon a tentacle, and then next turn be able to do whatever while these things are active.
Well, right, okay. So this one, rather than being limited to charisma mod, though, like the tendrils are, this one is just you get it once per short or long rest. So
I mean, yeah, your master is going to be hibernating, every 50 years at a time. So
yeah, all those delicious meals, he's got to rest it off.
Oh, pretty good. 14th level, you get Unleash the Depths. 14th level, you gain the ability to call upon your patron for aid. As an action, choose a point within 30 feet of you where your patron tears through reality, manifesting a measure of its thalassic grandeur. Choose one of the following effects to issue from this manifestation point. Once you use either effect, you cannot use this feature again until you take a long rest. You can either transport you and up to 5 willing creatures of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of the manifestation point are grasped by spectral tentacles and yanked through your patron's realm. The tentacles teleport you and the chosen creature to a point of your choice within 100 miles that you have visited within the past 24 hours. The tentacles then vanish. Or you can use Fury. You can direct a barrage of spectral tentacles to issue forth and strike up to 5 creatures within 30 feet of the manifestation point. Each target must make a dexterity saving throw against your spell save DC. On a fail, they take 6d10 cold or lightning damage, your choice, and is knocked prone. On successful saves, they take half as much damage and are not knocked prone. The tentacles then vanish. That's pretty cool flavor-wise.
The transport is nice. It's you have a get out of jail free card with that.
That's get out the next 3 jails with 100 miles.
Well, I mean, you could just count like 14th level. What spell slots do you have available normally?
I think you're highest at that point, ain't you?
No, as like a wizard would be 14th level is 7th level. So I'm pretty sure teleport is a 7th level spell. So most
is teleport an action though?
Is it a bonus action to do this?
No, this is an action. Because I know teleport circle is a different.
Right. No, but the spell teleport, which is I think just an action. Let's find out.
I'm looking it up now. Oh no, I think the site I used to look up spells is down.
Sucks to be you. I found it. It is a 7th level spell and it's 1 action. So you could just any other caster could just waste one of their 7th level spell slots, which granted is pricey. But you get this, it's a free ability. You don't have to use your spell slots. And warlocks, keep in mind, do get their own 7th level spell that they don't have to spend for this as well. So it is a free lesser teleport, because teleport you can go anywhere on the same plane of existence that or even if you don't know, you just roll to see if it is successful, and there's consequences for not. But yeah, so it's limited, but still 100 miles is significant. But I just love the fact that it's a get out of jail free card. And let me pull it back up here. And the only thing that I will say that would suck is I really hope your party is less than, or not, 6 or less people.
Yeah, that would be a little bit of a problem.
Teleport takes you and 8 willing creatures. This is you and 5 willing creatures. So just keep that in mind. It's a lesser teleport for free, but you just make sure, if you're planning on using this and your party, if you're in a game where you have a large amount of players, like sometimes I've seen B&D groups out there get up to like 8 players. Like that's gonna suck, because you better hope you have a wizard who can also teleport, because you're not getting
time to sacrifice the paladin. See you guys.
You'll be fine.
So just an interesting point of order there. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I think it's cool, especially because it's free in terms of spell slot usages, but just keep in mind, like, it's not as good as some other options that other classes could do.
I guess, but you're also keeping in mind, like, for the whole spell casting and everything, for teleport specifically, is Warlocks get 1 7th level spell that they.
Right.
I'm not talking just about spell slot. They learn 1 7th level spell.
Yep.
So instead of wasting it on teleport, you can learn literally anything else.
Right. And I
So-
agree. That's what I'm saying. I love it. I'm just, I was just making a
Yep.
note of the comparison there. But then, of
So
course,
final
that's
thoughts.
not your only thing, because that Fury thing is not bad either. If you wanna
Fury's
do
not
that.
terrible. It's decent damage. Final thoughts though, flavor wise, fucking fantastic. I love that you're tearing in parts. You're just this focal point to tear through reality for your patron to come in and fuck shit up for you. It's pretty fantastic.
It's interesting. It's Warlock.
Yep.
Yep.
That's
So
BB might disagree, but I'm in the same boat of
Sorry.
I would never play this because it's Warlock,
No.
but I love the flavor.
Again,
It's-
I feel like a broken record, but I think by a default Warlock, absolutely, those are in my opinion, a kind of a not so great of a choice to have if you're looking for maximum fun. But if with a couple of tweaks that I like to use in my games, I've had plenty of successes with players playing as Warlocks and whatnot. So when I look at it from that form of view, which does kind of suck that you have to do a little bit of home brewing, that it makes a lot of these subclass options way more viable. And as far as this goes, I think it's a lot of fun. It looks like it's a lot of fun. It's definitely got the most flavor out of any of them. I think it seems to me that this was probably made, or the base design of this was probably made as an afterthought to Wizards' Ghost of Saltmarsh book that came out like last year or something like that, because it just seems to me like this class is perfect for like a seafaring adventure when, like, the classic, everybody's like, the Kraken is summoning to fuck up like your ship and whatnot. You can just be doing that yourself, but it's never hurting your ship. It's just, the bad guys.
Yeah.
So I think it's very cool. I think if you use those custom Warlock rules we've talked about in a previous episode, then something like this will go a long way, and I think the player playing it would have a lot of fun.
I will say this is finally a base game, finally a Warlock subclass that I think is playable and doesn't make Hexblade the only go-to Warlock. Because I think base game Hexblade was like the premier, like if you want to be the most useful, this is what you want to go for.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting where you have that tendril thing that you're essentially able to use every fight, and being able to do extra damage on top of whatever your normal source of damage is, whether it be you are sitting back at range and firing off the classic Eldritch Blast, or if you want to be even a melee Warlock, could get uses out of this. Especially once you get that ability, the 10th level ability, where you can start restraining people, so then that way you can start getting advantage on those melee attacks. So there's a couple of different ways I can see
restraining
using
them, but then you can't really get close to them without getting hurt yourself.
Well, just positioning, right? If you conjure this thing where they're on the edge of the radius, so that way you're not,
Yeah, technically yes.
It's just with any other spell. If it affects you or your teammates, just move it in a position where it benefits you most. It's not going to always work out that way.
I still wouldn't want to get close to it. I'm just going to use a pole arm.
Which
Thematic.
a Warlock could do. I mean, they have martial weapon proficiencies by default, so pretty sure anyway.
All right. No, they do not.
Oh, that's right.
Or
It's
incorrect.
a specific. It's the Hexblade that does.
Oh,
Or no,
jeez.
no, you can be. No, I'm sorry. No, yes, you technically can if you take Pact to the Blade, because then you can just you can pact with any weapon. It doesn't matter what it is, and
Yeah.
you're just automatically proficient with it. So you may not have martial proficiency. You could just have a polearm be your pact weapon, unless there's a
True.
rule on like certain weapon types, which I guess I probably should have read before I made that comment, but alas.
Womp, womp, womp. Anyways, that's us done for the main segment of the show, I do believe.
That's correct. Not too bad. Not too bad. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion. I'd like to hear what your guys' opinions are, so make sure to let us know. Lots and lots of cool things that are in the works over at Wizards. I got to give them credit for it. So Before we head over to our bonus action segment, where we're going to answer your questions and just talk about whatever the hell we want to, just as a reminder, next week we tap into... Oh shit, is it the... Are we finally into the...
Final one. Barbarian Monk.
Barbarian and Monk, right. The... I don't remember what they're called, but the monk that can summon ghost arms, and the barbarian that was...
like projection monk, and the... Oh boy, what's the other one?
We're very prepared here on the Discussioneers Podcast.
If we never ever look these up beforehand, despite the fact that every time we're like, man, we should look these up.
I don't know.
Path of the Wild Soul
and
the Wave the Astral Self. There we are.
Yep. So that'll be an interesting discussion, because I think one of those two, you guys can go ahead and guess which one you might think. One of those two is completely overpowered.
Can hazard a guess.
So we'll talk about that next week, as well as I think it's safe to say that now that we've gotten through our beginning period of podcast, and we're getting through the initial Unearthed Arcana stuff that we want to do, we'd already talked about it previously off air, but on air, I guess we can officially announce real quick. This will be turning into a bi-weekly show, as with most of our other shows, just so we have time to prepare some of the future content, because we're not going to have readily new Unearthed Arcana every week, unfortunately, and also because it just makes it easier on us. So stay tuned.
There is another announcement as well to be made. On top of that, hopefully, assuming all goes well, and this is something perhaps more useful for those of you watching live, but starting this Friday, if all goes well, we will have another bi-weekly actual play D&D show going on, featuring an entirely brand new cast of individuals that I've had the utmost pleasure of playing with off stream for a little bit, and the group has decided that they kind of want to try out streaming things. So after we've just finished our first chapter of the campaign off stream, and we'll be bringing that party into a live show. So Friday at 6 p.m. EST, you should find us for the first live episode of Until the End.
That's Friday, November 22nd, by the way. Is what you probably should have announced, because
should have announced for the fact that this will be an immortal VOD upon various locations.
Okay, so that's going to do it for us, guys. We're going to cut to a little bit of a break here, and then we're going to jump back in for the bonus action to wrap up our day's podcasting, I guess. I don't know. That's what we're doing. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you next time.